Hey everybody, it's Drew with Universal Audio, and in this video we're going to cover the API Vision channel strip. This plugin is an end-to-end emulation of a full channel strip from API's legendary Vision console. It provides a one-stop shop for adding that API tone and punch to any source. We've got multiple EQ options, a full dynamics section, filters, and we've even modeled the mic preamp for expansive sonic possibilities. So let's check out some examples. For my first example, I have a drum room mic, and I'm going to use our preset browser and tagging system to find a good starting point. So I click on Default, which opens up the preset browser, and I'm going to expand the tag area here, and you'll notice that we have a list of instruments, but also just some adjectives here that might steer me in the right direction. In this case, I'm working on some drums, so I'm going to click on Drums, and you'll notice that it sorts our presets to anything that has drum in its name or is tagged as a drum preset. In this case, let's start with Drum Room Stereo. I click on it, it recalls, you can see the settings get loaded, and let's go ahead and give that a listen. So as you can hear, it's really livening up my drum room mics. I like what I'm hearing, but let's see how we got there. In order to do that, I'm going to turn off the EQ, I'm going to turn off the compressor, and turn off the filters. Let's focus on the input to the channel strip. So you'll notice that the line amp has been driven. This is going to impact the color as it hits the front of the module. Let's give a listen to what it sounds like without this being turned up, and I'll gradually turn it up and we can hear its impact. So you'll notice that not only are we getting more signal, but we're starting to get some of that API color and tone that I'm looking for. Let's move on to the filter section. Here, I'm looking to just sort of shave off a little bit of the bottom end, soften the top end a little bit. Remember, this is the room mic. I've got close mics on the kick drum, I've got overheads for the cymbals, so here I'm looking to focus the room mics on the frequencies I'm interested in. Let's take a listen. So that's super subtle, but it's setting the stage for the next process, which is the compressor. Now this preset's compressor settings are pretty aggressive. You'll notice we're set to fast attack, so the transients are going to be grabbed very quickly, as opposed to slow or medium. The threshold, it's down very low, so it's going to compress almost all of the signal. After that, you'll notice we have the ratio is set to infinity to 1, so we're basically in limit mode here. Next up is the knee and the type. I've got the knee set to hard, and I have the type set to new. These are the most modern aggressive settings. If I wanted it to be a little bit more gentle, I could soften the knee, and I could go for the old type of compression. Lastly, I have the release set to its fastest setting. That's gonna make sure that the compressor lets go quickly, and that's what's really gonna give me a lot of movement and life in this track. So let's take a listen. So we had a lot of compression happening here, primarily on the kick and snare, which is what I want on a room mic. You'll also notice that the level came up. I didn't have to do that. The compressor has auto makeup gain, which is awesome. You just tweak as needed and it takes care of the rest and you get a great result. So let's move on to the EQ. So with the EQ, this preset is looking to tame the top end a little bit and also de-emphasize the snare. So we have a little cut at 8K, another at 1K, and then a slightly larger cut at 400. This is gonna pull the snare back a little bit, bring it back into proportion while mellowing the top end a little bit. Let's take a listen. So you'll notice that the snare has been de-emphasized slightly and the top end smoothed out perfectly. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Let's do a final comparison of with and without the entire channel strip. So you might have noticed that the after level was a little bit too much. This is where the output fader comes into play. By reducing that to say 4 or 5 dB, I'm now gonna get a good comparison of before and after. So let's give one final listen. In my next example, we have a snare drum track, and I'm using the Snare Deep preset. It has a gentle high-pass filter, and it has a compressor setting that is much more gentle than the room mic we just saw. Here we're using slow attack instead of fast, and the ratio is only 2:1, and you'll notice the threshold's not nearly as low. Now, we also have an EQ where all 4 bands are in use, and the difference with this preset is that the EQ is set to be pre-dynamics. That means the EQ processing is happening before the compressor. In the other example, the EQ is happening after. So let's take a listen. So my snare's sounding better already. There's more detail, more clarity, more body. Now you'll notice the API EQ goes in 2 dB steps. Don't let that scare you. It's a very musical EQ and it provides very pleasing results. And as you can hear, with these settings, it does not sound over EQ'd. So let's check out the gate expander module. The one thing I don't like about what's happening right now is the hi-hat bleed. And this module is going to allow me to isolate the snare drum. Now this preset calls up a gate setting that's perfectly tuned for a snare. So let's put it in circuit and let's give it a listen. So it's already sounding pretty good. Of course, you'll need to tweak some parameters to fit your tracks. And I recommend you focus on threshold, which determines when the gate will open or close, the depth, how much it will open and close, and the release, which is how fast or slow it will close down. Let's take a listen. So you'll notice as I adjusted the release, as I slowed it down, it actually allowed that kick and hi-hat to sneak in there. So in this example, I would probably want to put that release back to being fast. So in my next example, we'll be dealing with some vocals. Now the first thing you're going to notice is a big change in the EQ section. The API Vision channel strip has 2 completely different EQs that are toggled by clicking the type button. In previous examples, I was using the 550L 4-band parametric. By clicking the type button, we open up the 560L 10-band graphic EQ. This has its own unique character, more bands, and I think it's going to do what I want here. Let's take a listen. So now the vocal's more open, it's more airy, and the 560 with its inherent brightness was part of that equation. I love this EQ for applications like this, or electric guitar, or really anything where I'm looking to really dig in and carve out the sounds that I'm looking for. So let me show you one more trick. We also modeled the mic preamp, and this allows you to run line level sources back through the mic preamp for even more API tone and color. To do this, I'm gonna click the input button in the input section to switch over to mic, but before you hit play, be sure to hit the pad as there's going to be a big increase in gain here. Now I'm going to hit play and adjust the mic gain to taste while looking at the meter and determining how much drive I want to add here. Let's give that a listen. So this allows me to drive my signal and get more of that API color that I'm looking for. Now it might increase your compression settings, so be sure to check that. And if you're a little bit hot in the end, you can bring down the output fader as needed for your tracks. As you've heard, the API Vision channel strip has everything you need all in one plugin to add color and tone to every track in your mix. Be sure to subscribe to the Universal Audio YouTube channel for more tips and tricks. See you next time.